It was first proposed by Rieter, and environment ecology is the science that deals with the relationships between living organisms with their physical environment and with each other. Feet can be studied by considering individual organic population, community, biome or biosphere and their environment. The term ecology or ecology is derived from two Greek words zokos, meaning house or dwelling place, and logos, meaning study. It was first proposed by Rieter, 1868. However, the most widely accepted definition of ecology was given by Ernest Haeckel, 1869, 1.1. Ecological hierarchy. The interaction of organisms with their environment results in the establishment of grouping of organisms, which is called ecological hierarchy or ecological levels of organization. The basic one of ecological hierarchy is an individual organism. The different hierarchy of ecological systems is illustrated below. Ecological hierarchy: biosphere, biome, landscape, ecosystem, community, population. Individual organism. 1.2. Branches of ecology. Ecology is mainly divided into two branches. They are ontology and synecology. 1. Ontology is the ecology of an individual species and is also called species ecology. 2. Synecology is the ecology of a population or community with one or more species and also called as community ecology. 1.3 Important terms. Habitat. Habitat is a specific physical place or locality occupied by an organism or any species which has a particular combination of abiotic or environmental factors. But the environment of any community is called biotope. 161.1048. Niche. An ecological niche refers to an organism's place in the biotic environment and its functional role in an ecosystem. The habitat and niche of any organism is called ecotope. Ecological equivalence. Taxonomically different species occupying similar habitats, niches, in different geographical regions are called ecological equivalence. Examples: times certain species of epiphytic orchids of Western Ghats of India differ from the epiphytic orchids of South America, but they are epiphytes. Species of the grasslands of Western Ghats of India differ from the grass species of temperate grasslands of steppe in North America, but they are all ecologically primary producers and fulfilling similar roles in their respective communities. Ecotone, the transition zone between two ecosystems. Example: the border between forest and grassland. Edge effect. Those species are found in the ecotone areas are due to the effect of environment of the two habitats. This is called edge effect. Example: owl in the ecotone area between forest and grassland. 1.4 Ecological factors. Many organisms coexist in an environment. The environment, surrounding, includes physical, chemical and biological components. When a component surrounding an organism affects the life of an organism, it becomes a factor. All such factors together are called environmental factors. They are ecological factors. These factors can be classified into living, biotic, and non-living, abiotic, which make the environment of an organism. However, the ecological factors are meaningfully grouped into 4 classes, which are as follows: I. Climatic factors. 2. Edaphic factors. 3. Topographic factors. 4. Biotic factors. I. Climatic factors. Climate is one of the important natural factors controlling the plant life. The climatic factors includes light, temperature, water, wind and fire. Light is a well-known factor needed for the basic physiological processes of plants, such as photosynthesis, transpiration, seed germination and flowering. 162. 1049. The portion of the sunlight which can be resolved by the human eye is called visible light. The visible part of light is made up of wavelength from about 400 nm, violet, to 700 nm, red. The rate of photosynthesis is maximum at blue, 400 to 500 nm, and red, 600 to 700 nm. Temperature. Temperature is one of the important factors which affect almost all the metabolic activities of an organism. Every physiological process in an organism requires an optimum temperature at which it shows the maximum metabolic rate. Effects of temperature. The following physiological processes are influenced by temperature. Temperature affects the enzymatic action of all the biochemical reactions in a plant body. It influences CO2 and O2 solubility in the biological systems. Increases respiration and stimulates growth of seedlings. Low temperature with high humidity can spread diseases to plants. The varying temperature with moisture determines the distribution of the vegetation types. Water. Water is one of the most important climatic factors. It affects the vital processes of all living organisms. It is believed that even life had originated only in water during the evolution of Earth. Water covers more than 70% of the Earth's surface. In nature, water is available to plants in 3 ways. They are atmospheric moisture, precipitation and soil water. The productivity and distribution of plants depend upon the availability of water. Further, the quality of water is also important, especially for the aquatic organisms. Wind. Air in motion is called wind. It is also a vital ecological factor. The atmospheric air contains a number of gases, particles and other constituents. The composition of gases in atmosphere is as follows: nitrogen -78%, oxygen -21%, carbon dioxide 0.03%, argon and other gases 0.93%. The other components of wind are water vapor, gaseous pollutants, dust, smoke particles, microorganisms, pollen grains, spores, etc. Anemometer is the instrument used to measure the speed of wind. Effects of wind. Wind is an important factor for the formation of rain, causes wave formation in lakes and ocean, which promotes aeration of water. Strong wind causes soil erosion and reduces soil fertility. Times increases the rate of transpiration. Helps in pollination in anemophilous plants. It also helps in dispersal of many fruits, seeds, spores, etc. 163. 1049. 2. Edaphic factors. Edaphic factors, the abiotic factors related to soil, include the physical and chemical composition of the soil formed in a particular area. The study of soils is called pedology. The soil is the weathered superficial layer of the earth in which plants can grow. It is a complex composite mess consisting of soil constituents, soil water, soil air and soil organisms, etc. Soil formation. Soil originates from rocks and develops gradually at different rates, depending upon the ecological and climatic conditions. Soil formation is initiated by the weathering process. Biological weathering takes place when organisms like bacteria, fungi, lichens and plants help in the breakdown of rocks through the production of acids and certain chemical substances. Soil types. Based on soil formation, pedogenesis, the soils are divided into 1. Residual soils. These are soils formed by weathering and pedogenesis of the rock. 2. Transported soils. These are transported by various agencies. The important edaphic factors which affect vegetation are as follows. 1. Soil moisture. Plants absorbs rainwater and moisture directly from the air. 2. Soil water. Soil water is more important than any other ecological factors affecting the distribution of plants. Rain is the main source of soil water. Capillary water held between pore spaces of soil particles and angles between them is the most important form of water available to the plants. 3. Soil reactions. Soil may be acidic or alkaline or neutral in their reaction. pH value of the soil solution determines the availability of plant nutrients. The best pH range of the soil for cultivation of crop plants is 5.5 to 6.8. 4. Soil nutrients. Soil fertility and productivity is the ability of soil to provide all essential plant nutrients such as minerals and organic nutrients in the form of ions. 5. Soil temperature. Soil temperature of an area plays an important role in determining the geographical distribution of plants. Low temperature reduces use of water and solute absorption by roots. 6. Soil atmosphere. The spaces left between soil particles are called pore spaces which contains oxygen and carbon dioxide. 7. Soil organisms. Many organisms existing in the soil like bacteria, fungi, algae, protozoans, nematodes, insects, earthworms, etc. are called soil organisms. Loamy soil is ideal soil for cultivation. It consists of 70% sand and 30% clay or silt or both. It ensures good retention and proper drainage of water. The porosity of soil provides adequate aeration and allows the penetration of roots. 164. 1050. 3. Topographic factors. The surface features of Earth are called topography. Topographic influence on the climate of any area is determined by the interaction of solar radiation, temperature, humidity, rainfall, latitude and altitude. It affects the vegetation through climatic variations in small areas, microclimate, and even changes the soil conditions. Topographic factors include latitude, altitude, direction of mountain, steepness of mountain, etc. Latitudes and altitudes. Latitudes represent distance from the equator. Temperature values are maximum at the equator and decrease gradually towards poles. Height above the sea level forms the altitude. At high altitudes, the velocity of wind remains high, temperature and air pressure decrease while humidity and intensity of light increases. Due to these factors, vegetation at different altitudes varies, showing distinct zonation. B. Direction of mountain. North and south faces of mountain or hill possess different types of flora and fauna because they differ in their humidity, rainfall, light intensity, light duration and temperature regions. The two faces of the mountain or hill receive different amount of solar radiation, wind action and rain. Of these two faces, the windward region possesses good vegetation due to heavy rains and the leeward region possesses poor vegetation due to rain shadows, rain deficit. Similarly, in the soil of aquatic bodies like ponds, the center and edge possess different depth of water due to soil slope and different wave actions in the water body. Therefore, different parts of the same area may possess different species of organisms. See steepness of the mountain. The steepness of the mountain or hill allows the rain to run off. As a result, the loss of water causes water deficit and quick erosion of the topsoil resulting in poor vegetation. On the other hand, the plains and valley are rich in vegetation due to the slow drain of surface water and better retention of water in the soil. 4. Biotic factors. The interactions among living organisms such as plants and animals are called biotic factors, which may cause marked effects upon vegetation. The effects may be direct and indirect and modifies the environment. The plants mostly which lives together in a community and influence one another. Similarly, animals in association with plants also affect the plant life in one or several ways. 1.5 Ecological adaptations. The modifications in the structure of organisms to survive successfully in an environment are called adaptations of organisms. Adaptations help the organisms to exist under the prevailing ecological habitat. Based on the habitats and the corresponding adaptations of plants, they are classified as hydrophytes, xerophytes, mesophytes, epiphytes and halophytes. 165. kanagraj.bioscience@gmail.com. 1051. Hydrophytes. The plants which are living in water or wet places are called hydrophytes. Xerophytes. The plants which are living in dry or xeric condition are known as xerophytes. Mesophytes. The plants which are living in moderate conditions, neither too wet nor too dry, are known as mesophytes. These are common land plants. Example, madge and hibiscus. Epiphytes. Epiphytes are plants which grow perched on other plants, supporting plants. They use the supporting plants only as shelter and not for water or food supply. These epiphytes are commonly seen in tropical rainforests. Examples, orchids, lianas, hanging mosses and money plant. Halophytes. There are special type of halophytic plants which grow on soils with high concentration of salts. Examples: Rhizophora, Soneratia and Avicennia. 166. Theta epsilon. 1051. 2. Ecosystem. The term ecosystem was proposed by A. G. Tansley, 1935, who defined it as the system resulting from the integration of all the living and non-living factors of the environment, whereas Odom, 1962, defined ecosystem as the structural and functional unit of ecology. 2.1 Structure of ecosystem. Ecosystem comprises of two major components. They are abiotic, non-living, components. It include climatic factors, air, water, sunlight, rainfall, temperature and humidity, edaphic factor, soil air, soil per water and pH of soil, topography, latitude, altitude, organic components, carbohydrates, proteins, lipids and humic substances, and inorganic substances, CHO, N and P. Abiotic components play a vital role in any ecosystem, and hence the total inorganic substances present in any ecosystem at a given time is called standing quality, or standing state. Biotic, living, components. It includes all living organisms like plants, animals, fungi and bacteria. They form the trophic structures of any ecosystem. On the basis of nutritional relationships, trophic levels of an ecosystem has two components. 1. Autotrophic components and 2. Heterotrophic components. 1. Autotrophic components. Autotrophs are organisms which can manufacture the organic compounds from simple inorganic components through a process called photosynthesis. In most of the ecosystems, green plants are the autotrophs and are also called producers. 2. Heterotrophic components. Those organisms which consume the producers are called consumers and can be recognized into macro and micro consumers. Macro consumers refer to herbivores, carnivores and omnivores, primary, secondary and tertiary consumers. Micro consumers are called decomposers. Decomposers are organisms that decompose the dead plants and animals to release organic and inorganic nutrients into the environment, which are again reused by plants. Example: bacteria, actinomycetes and fungi. The amount of living materials present in a population at any given time is known as standing crop, which may be expressed in terms of number or biomass per unit area. Biomass can be measured as fresh weight or dry weight or carbon weight of organisms. Biotic components are essential to construct the food chain, food web and ecological pyramids. 2.2 Functions of ecosystem. The function of ecosystem include to energy creation, sharing of energy and cycling of materials between the living and non-living component of an ecosystem. 167. 1053. Photosynthetically active radiation, PAR. The amount of light available for photosynthesis of is called photosynthetically active radiation, PAR, which is between the range 400 to 700 nm wavelength. It is essential for photosynthesis and plant growth. PAR is not always constant because of clouds, tree shades, air, dust particles, seasons, latitudes and length of daylight availability. Generally, plants absorbs blue and red light for efficient photosynthesis. Of the total sunlight, 34% that reaching the atmosphere is reflected back into the atmosphere. Moreover, 10% is held by remaining 56% reaches the Earth's Su-64 ing. The atmosphere is reflected back into the water vapors and atmospheric gases and the CE. Out of this 56%, only 2 to 10% of the solar energy is used by green plants for photosynthesis, while the remaining portion is dissipated as heat. 2.3 Productivity of an ecosystem. The rate of biomass production per unit area in a unit time is called productivity. It can be expressed in terms of GMM2 year or CalM2 year. It is classified as given below. 1. Primary productivity. 2. Secondary productivity. 3. Community productivity. 1. Primary productivity, the chemical energy or organic matter generated by autotrophs during the process of photosynthesis and chemosynthesis is called primary productivity. It is the source of energy for all organisms, from bacteria to human. A. Gross primary productivity, GPP, the total amount of food energy or organic matter or biomass produced in an ecosystem by autotrophs through the process of photosynthesis is called gross primary productivity. B. Net primary productivity, NPP, the proportion of energy which remains after respiration loss in the plant is called net primary productivity. It is also called as apparent photosynthesis. Thus the difference between GPP and respiration is known as NPP. NPP GPP respiration. NPP of whole biosphere is estimated to be about 170 billion tons, dry weight, per year. Out of which NPP of oceanic producers is only 55 billion tons per year in unit time. 2. Secondary productivity. The amount of energy stored in the tissues of heterotrophs or consumers is called secondary productivity. 3. Community productivity. The rate of net synthesis of organic matter, biomass, by a group of plants per unit area per unit time is known as community productivity. 168. 1054. Factors affecting primary productivity. Primary productivity depends upon the plant species of an area, their photosynthetic capacity, availability of nutrients, solar radiation, precipitation, soil type, topographic factors, altitude, latitude, direction, and other environmental factors. It varies in different types of ecosystems. Productivity of different ecosystems. The primary productivity of an ecosystem is not determined by size and number of population, but by the rate of total fixation of radiant energy. Generally, the average world net primary productivities of open ocean and tropical rainforest are the maximum among aquatic and terrestrial ecosystems respectively. 2.4 Concept of ecosystem, Greek word trophic, to food or feeding. Trophic level in an ecosystem, Greek word trophic, to food or feeding. A trophic level refers to the position of an organism in the food chain. The number of trophic levels is equal to the number of steps in the food chain. The green plants, producers, occupying the first trophic level, T1, are called producers. The energy produced by the producers is utilized by the plant eaters, herbivores. They are called primary consumers and occupies the second trophic level, T2. Herbivores are eaten by carnivores, which occupy the third trophic level, T3. They are also called secondary consumers or primary carnivores. Carnivores are eaten by the other carnivores, which occupy the fourth trophic level, T4. They are called the tertiary consumers or secondary carnivores. Some organisms which eat both plants and animals are called as omnivores, crow. Such organisms may occupy more than one trophic level in the food chain. Energy flow. The transfer of energy in an ecosystem between trophic levels can be termed as energy flow. It is the key function in an ecosystem. Part of the energy obtained from the sun by producer is transferred to consumers and decomposers through the each trophic level, while some amount of energy is dissipated in the form of heat. Energy flow is always unidirectional in an ecosystem. Laws of thermodynamics. The storage and loss of energy in an ecosystem is based on two basic laws of thermodynamics. First law of thermodynamics. It states that energy can be transmitted from one system to another in various forms. Energy cannot be destroyed or created, but it can be transformed from one form to another. As a result, the quantity of energy present in the universe is constant. 169. 1054. Example, in photosynthesis, the product of starch, chemical energy, is formed by the combination of reactants, chlorophyll, H2O, CO2. The energy stored in starch is acquired from the external sources, light energy, and so there is no gain or loss in total energy. Here light energy is converted into chemical energy. 2.Second law of thermodynamics. I states that energy transformation results in the reduction of the free energy of the system. Usually energy transformation cannot be 100% efficient. As energy is transferred from one organism to another in the form of food, a portion of it is stored as energy in living tissue, whereas a large part of energy is dissipated as heat through respiration. The transfer of energy is irreversible natural process. Example, 10% law. This law was proposed by Lindemann, 1942. It states that during transfer of food energy from one trophic level to other, only about 10% stored at every level and rest of them, 90%, is lost in respiration, decomposition and in the form of heat. Hence, the law is called 10% law. Food chain. The movement of energy from producers up to top carnivores is known as food chain, i.e., in any food chain, energy flows from producers to primary consumers, then from primary consumers to secondary consumers, and finally secondary consumers to tertiary consumers. Hence, it shows linear network links. Generally, there are two types of food chain, 1. Grazing food chain and 2. Detritus food chain. 1. Grazing food chain. Main source of energy for the grazing food chain is the sun. It begins with the first link, producers, plants. The second link in the food chain is primary consumers, mouse, which get their food from producers. The third link in the food chain is secondary consumers, snake, which get their food from primary consumers. Fourth link in the food chain is tertiary consumers, eagle, which get their food from secondary consumers. Plants, mouse, snake, eagle. 2. Detritus food chain. This type of food chain begins with dead organic matter, which is an important source of energy. A large amount of organic matter is derived from the dead plants, animals and their excreta. This type of food chain is present in all ecosystems. The transfer of energy from the dead organic matter is transferred through a series of organisms called detritus consumers, detritivores, small carnivores, large, top, carnivores with repeated eating and being eaten respectively. This is called the detritus food chain. 170. 1055. Food web. The interlocking pattern of a number of food chain form a web-like arrangement called food web. It is the basic unit of an ecosystem to maintain its stability in nature. It is called homeostasis. Example, in a grazing food chain of a grassland, in the absence of a rabbit, a mouse may also eat food grains. The mouse in turn may be eaten directly by a hawk or by a snake, and the snake may be directly eaten by hawks. Ecological pyramids. Graphic representation of the trophic structure and function at successive trophic levels of an ecosystem is called ecological pyramids. The concept of ecological pyramids was introduced by Charles Elton, 1927. Thus they are also called as Eltonian pyramids. There are three types: 1. Pyramid of number, 2. Pyramid of biomass, 3. Pyramid of energy. 1. Pyramid of number. A graphical representation of the number of organisms present at each successive trophic level in an ecosystem is called pyramids of number. There are three different shapes of pyramids: upright, spindle, and inverted. There is a gradual decrease in the number of organisms in each trophic level from producers to primary consumers and then to secondary consumers, and finally to tertiary consumers. Therefore, pyramids of number in grassland and pond ecosystem are always upright. In a forest ecosystem, the pyramid of number is somewhat different in shape. It is because the base, T1, of the pyramid occupies large-sized trees, producer, which are lesser in number. Herbivores, T2, fruit-eating birds, elephant, deer, occupying second trophic level, are more in number than the producers. In final trophic level, T4, tertiary consumers, lion, are lesser in number than the secondary consumer, T3, fox and snake. Therefore, the pyramid of number in forest ecosystem looks spindle-shaped. The pyramid of number in a parasite ecosystem is always inverted, because it starts with a single tree. Therefore, there is gradual increase in the number of organisms in successive trophic levels from producer to tertiary consumers. 2. Pyramid of biomass. A graphical representation of the amount of organic material, biomass, present at each successive trophic level in an ecosystem is called pyramid of biomass. In grassland and forest ecosystems, there is a gradual decrease in biomass of organisms at successive trophic levels from producers to top carnivores, tertiary consumer. Therefore, these two ecosystems show pyramids as upright pyramids of biomass. 171. 1113. However, in pond ecosystem, the bottom of the pyramid is occupied by the producers, which comprise very small organisms possessing the least biomass, and so, the value gradually increases towards the tip of the pyramid. Therefore, the pyramid of biomass is always inverted in shape. 3. Pyramid of energy. A graphical representation of energy flow at each successive trophic level in an ecosystem is called pyramids of energy. The bottom of the pyramid of energy is occupied by the producers. There is a gradual decrease in energy transfer at successive trophic levels from producers to the upper levels. Therefore, the pyramid of energy is always upright. 2.5. Decomposition. Decomposition is a process in which the detritus, dead plants, animals and their excreta, are break down into simple organic matter by the decomposers. It is an essential process for recycling and balancing the nutrient pool and ecosystem. Nature of decomposition. The process of decomposition varies based on the nature of the organic compounds, i.e. some of the compounds like carbohydrate, fat and protein are decomposed rapidly than the cellulose, lignin, chitin, hair and bone. Mechanism of decomposition. Decomposition is a stepwise process of degradation mediated by enzymatic reactions. Detritus acts as a raw material for decomposition. It occurs in the following steps. A. Fragmentation. The breaking down of detritus into smaller particles by detritivores like bacteria, fungi and earthworm is known as fragmentation. These detritivores secrete certain substances to enhance the fragmentation process and increase the surface area of detritus particles. B. Catabolism. The decomposers produce some extracellular enzymes in their surroundings to break down complex organic and inorganic compounds into simpler ones. This is called catabolism. C. Leaching or eluviation. The movement of decomposed, water-soluble organic and inorganic compounds from the surface to the lower layer of soil or the carrying away of the same by water is called leaching or eluviation. Dehumification. It is a process by which simplified detritus is changed into dark-colored amorphous substance called humus. It is highly resistant to microbial action, therefore decomposition is very slow. It is the reservoir of nutrients. E. Mineralization. Some microbes are involved in the release of inorganic nutrients from the humus of the soil. Such process is called mineralization. Factors affecting decomposition. Decomposition is affected by climatic factors like temperature, soil moisture, soil pH, oxygen and also the chemical quality of detritus. 172. 1113. 2.6 Biogeochemical cycle, nutrient cycle. Exchange of nutrients between organisms and their environment is one of the essential aspects of an ecosystem. All organisms require nutrients for their growth, development, maintenance and reproduction. Circulation of nutrients within the ecosystem or biosphere is known as biogeochemical cycles and also called as cycling of materials. There are two basic types. 1. Gaseous cycle. It includes atmospheric oxygen, carbon and nitrogen cycles. 2. Sedimentary cycle. It includes the cycles of phosphorus, sulfur and calcium, which are present as sediments of earth. Carbon cycle. The circulation of carbon between organisms and environment is known as the carbon cycle. Carbon is an inevitable part of all biomolecules and is substantially impacted by the change in global climate. Cycling of carbon between organisms and atmosphere is a consequence of two reciprocal processes of photosynthesis and respiration. The releasing of carbon in the atmosphere increases due to burning of fossil fuels, deforestation, forest fire, volcanic eruption and decomposition of dead organic matters. The details of carbon cycle are given in the figure. Phosphorus cycle. It is a type of sedimentary cycle. Phosphorus is found in the biomolecules like DNA, RNA, ATP, NAD and phospholipid molecules of living organisms. Phosphorus is not abundant in the biosphere, whereas a bulk quantity of phosphorus is present in rock deposits, marine sediments and guano. It is released from these cliposits by weathering process. After that, it circulates in lithosphere as well as hydrosphere. The producers absorb phosphorus in the form of phosphate ions, and then it is transferred to each trophic level of food chain through food. Again, death of the organisms and degradation by the action of decomposers. The phosphorus is released back into the lithosphere and hydrosphere to maintain phosphorus cycle. 173. 1114. 2.7 Types of ecosystem. Ecosystem. Natural ecosystem. Artificial or man-made ecosystem, with or without human interference, artificially maintained by man. Example, rice field and match field. Terrestrial ecosystem. Example, forest ecosystem, grassland ecosystem, desert ecosystem, aquatic ecosystem, open water. 1. Freshwater ecosystem. 2. Marine ecosystem. 2.8. Ecosystem services. Benefits. Ecosystem services are defined as the benefits that people derive from nature. Ecosystem services are the benefits provided to human through the transformation of resources or environmental assets including land, water, vegetation and atmosphere into a flow of essential goods and services. Study on ecosystem services acts as an effective tool for gaining knowledge on ecosystem benefits and their sustained use. Without such knowledge gain, the fate of any ecosystem will be at stake and the benefits they provide to us in future will become bleak. 174. 1150. Ecosystem services provisioning cultural services food, fiber and fuel genetic resources biochemicals freshwater medicines. Supporting services primary production provision of habitat nutrient cycling soil formation and retention. Spiritual and religious values knowledge system education and inspiration recreation and aesthetic values production of atmosphere oxygen. Times water cycling regulating services times invasion resistance herbivory pollination seed dispersal climate regulation. Times pest regulation disease regulation erosion regulation water purification natural hazard protection. Mangrove ecosystem services offers habitat and act as nursery for aquatic plants and animals provides medicine, fuel wood and timber. Act as bridge between sea and rivers by balancing sedimentation and soil erosion. Help to reduce water force during cyclones, tsunamis and high tide periods. Help in windbreak, CO2 production, carbon sequestration and prevents salt spray from waves. Generally the following human activities disturb or re-engineer an ecosystem every day. Habitat destruction deforestation and overgrazing. Erosion of soils. Introduction of non-native species over-harvesting of plant material pollution of land, water and air run of pesticides, fertilizers and animal wastes. 175. 1151. Ecosystem resilience ecosystem is damaged by disturbances from fire, flood, predation, infection, drought, etc., removing a great amount of biomass. However, ecosystem is endowed with the ability to resist the damage and recover quickly. This ability of ecosystem is called ecosystem resilience or ecosystem robustness 2.9. Plant succession. We very often see that forests and lands in our areas are drastically affected by natural calamities, flood, earthquake, and anthropogenic activities, fire, overgrazing, cutting of trees. Due to these reasons all plants of an area are destroyed and the areas become nude. When we observe this area, over a period of a time we can see that it will be gradually covered by plant community again and become fertile. Such successive replacement of one type of plant community by the other of the same area place is known as plant succession. The first invaded plants in a barren area are called pioneers. On the other hand, a series of transitional developments of plant communities one after another in a given area are called seral communities. At the end a final stage and a final plant community gets established which are called as climax and climax community respectively. Characteristics of ecological succession. It is a systematic process which causes changes in specific structure of plant community. It is resultant of changes of abiotic and biotic factors. It transforms unstable community into a stable community. Gradual progression in species diversity, total biomass, niche specialization, and humus content of soil takes place. It progresses from simple food chain to complex food web. It modifies the lower and simple life form to the higher life forms. It creates interdependence of plants and animals. Types of succession. 1. Primary succession. The development of plant community in a barren area where no community existed before is called primary succession. The plants which colonize first in a barren area is called pioneer species or primary community or primary colonies. Generally, primary succession takes a very long time for the occurrence in any region. Example, microbes, lichen, mosses. 2. Secondary succession. The development of a plant community in an area where an already developed community has been destroyed by some natural disturbance, fire, flood, human activity, is known as secondary succession generally. This succession takes less time than the time taken for primary succession. 176. 1151. Example, the forest destroyed by fire and excessive lumbering may be reoccupied by herbs over period of times. 2.10 Agroecology. Agroecology is the application of ecological concepts and methodological design for long-term enhancement and management of soil fertility and agriculture productivity. It provides a strategy to increase diversified agroecosystem. So it is benefiting the effect of the incorporation of plant and animal biodiversity, nutrient recycling, biomass creation and growth through the use of natural resource systems based on legumes, trees, and incorporation of livestock. These all make the basis of a sustainable agriculture and aim to improve the food system and societal sustainability. Sustainable agricultural practices have to tackle the conservation of biodiversity, enhanced ecological functions, social tolerance, self-reliance, fairness, improved quality of life and economic productivity of crops and livestock. Concept of agroecosystems. A system made up of a community of plants and animals including microorganisms and its interrelated physical, chemical and biological environment is known as ecosystem. Agroecosystem is a system consisting of soils, crops and animals related to agriculture including microorganisms and its interrelated physical, chemical and biological environment. Agroecosystems are ecological systems modified by human beings to produce food, fiber or other agricultural products. In agricultural development, natural ecosystems are modified to produce food and fiber. An agroecosystem is a complex of air, water, soil, plants, animals, microorganisms and others in an area that have modified for agricultural production. A rice or wheat-based agroecosystem produces more dry matter and economic products than native grass. However, agroecosystems are less sustainable than natural ecosystems. Regular supplies of seeds, fertilizers, water are to be provided to the agroecosystem for its sustainability, whereas natural grasslands or forests survive without any external inputs by human beings. Agroecosystems of India. Agroecosystems are classified mainly based on rainfall, physiography, soils and availability of irrigation water. India is divided into 5 agroecosystems: arid, rain-fed, irrigated, coastal and hill and mountain agroecosystems. Agro-ecosystem area, MHA, 38.767 special features rain-fed severe water deficits occasional water deficits 177. Arid. 1152. Example, the forest destroyed by fire and excessive lumbering may be reoccupied by herbs over period of times. 2.10 Agroecology. Agroecology is the application of ecological concepts and methodological design for long-term enhancement and management of soil fertility and agriculture productivity. It provides a strategy to increase diversified agroecosystem. So it is benefiting the effect of the incorporation of plant and animal biodiversity, nutrient recycling, biomass creation and growth through the use of natural resource systems based on legumes, trees, and incorporation of livestock. These all make the basis of a sustainable agriculture and aim to improve the food system and societal sustainability. Sustainable agricultural practices have to tackle the conservation of biodiversity, enhanced ecological functions, social tolerance, self-reliance, fairness, improved quality of life and economic productivity of crops and livestock. Concept of agroecosystems. A system made up of a community of plants and animals including microorganisms and its interrelated physical, chemical and biological environment is known as ecosystem. Agroecosystem is a system consisting of soils, crops and animals related to agriculture including microorganisms and its interrelated physical, chemical and biological environment. Agroecosystems are ecological systems modified by human beings to produce food, fiber or other agricultural products. In agricultural development, natural ecosystems are modified to produce food and fiber. An agroecosystem is a complex of air, water, soil, plants, animals, microorganisms and others in an area that have modified for agricultural production. A rice or wheat-based agroecosystem produces more dry matter and economic products than native grass. However, agroecosystems are less sustainable than natural ecosystems. Regular supplies of seeds, fertilizers, water are to be provided to the agroecosystem for its sustainability, whereas natural grasslands or forests survive without any external inputs by human beings. Agroecosystems of India. Agroecosystems are classified mainly based on rainfall, physiography, soils and availability of irrigation water. India is divided into 5 agroecosystems: arid, rain-fed, irrigated, coastal and hill and mountain agroecosystems. Agroecosystem area, MHA, 38.767 special features rain-fed severe water deficits occasional water deficits 177. Arid. 1152. The rain-fed ecosystem is characterized by frequent dry spells during crop season due to breaks in monsoon or early withdrawal of monsoon. The soils are mostly alphy soils and vertisoils. The livestock consists of mainly cattle followed by sheep. 3. Coastal ecosystem. India with an 8,129 kilometers long coastline and endowed with plenty of natural resources, the coastal agroecosystem is highly fragile, being vulnerable to the unending addition of municipal wastes and industrial effluents, cyclones, floods and tidal waves, and often causes forays to crops, game and communications system. Expected rise of sea level due to climate change may likely to add miseries. Most of the coastal area is nearly level and includes the low-lying part of the deltas of the Ganges system between Eastern Ghats and Bay of Bengal in the eastern coast and between Western Ghats and Arabian Sea. The ecosystem has deltas, lacustrine fringes, lagoons, narrow coastal marshes and terraces along the creeks. Almost the entire coastal area of the country except North Gujarat coast receives a normal annual rainfall of more than 1000 mm, with West Coast getting more than 2500 mm. The rains are mostly received in southwest monsoon period and often with high intensity. The coastal regions are characterized by higher humidity, lower diurnal temperature variation. The coastal agroecosystem supports agriculture, aquaculture, marine fishing, agroforestry, silviculture and agri-horticulture. 4. Hill and mountain ecosystem. The major part of the hill and mountain production system is located in northwest Himalayan and northeast Himalayan regions, while small regions are located in western and eastern Ghats. The climate of the northwest Himalayan region ranges from hot and subhumid tropical climate in the southern low altitude to temperate cold arid in the north region at high altitude. The annual rainfall in the ecosystem ranges from a very low of 80 mm in the cold arid region of Ladakh to 11,550 mm in northeast Himalayan region. This region experiences snowfall during winter and hailstorms in March-April. Most of the rain is received during southwest monsoon period and is generally received with high intensity. The mid-hill and high-hill region experiences severe winter condition with below freezing temperature. The physiography of the ecosystem is with steep slopes interspersed with nearly level lands. In valley, soils on hill and mountain slopes are generally acidic and lateritic. Soils are prone to severe erosion. The soils in valley are alluvial soils with loam to sandy loam in texture. All the soil and climatic factors together present a unique types environment in the hill regions. The high rainfall, high humidity, less solar radiation from an ideal environment for a large number of pests, diseases and weeds. From foothills to 1250 m altitude range, agriculture is the main occupation, while at higher altitude, 1250 to 1650 m, majority of the area is under plantation crops. 179. 1153. Irrigated ecosystems. Ingarted agriculture accounts for 37% country's arable land with 55% total agriculture production. The major area is located in North India, covering large areas in Punjabi, Haryana, Himachal Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar and West Bengal. The other areas of irrigated agro-ecosystems spread over rest of India under different major, medium and minor irrigation projects. The important areas among them are irrigated areas in Andhra Pradesh under Godavari and Krishna rivers, Narmada in Gujarat, Mahandi and Hirakud in Odisha, Tava and Wainganga in Madhya Pradesh, Godavari and Krishna in Maharashtra, Krishna and Tungabhadra in Karnataka, Kovari and Manimatur in Tamil Nadu and Periyar in Kerala. The irrigated area located across various agro-ecosystem regions experience varied condition. For example, the agro-ecosystem in the northern part of India covering Haryana, Punjab, Himachal Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir region experience arid to subhumid climate with rainfall varying from 400 mm to 1140 mm. The important crops in the ecosystem are rice, wheat, sugarcane, cotton to variety of vegetable and fruit crops. Great diversity in soil water, climate resources are found in the ecosystem. The prevailing nutrient and water management practices pose the real threat to sustained production of irrigated system. Abuse of surface water resources in canal commands resulted in rising of water table and associated problems of waterlogging and salinity in arid and semi-arid regions, which led to abandoning cultivation in otherwise productive soils. On the other hand, water table in high production areas of Trans and Upper Gangetic plains is receding at a faster rate due to overdraft of good quality groundwater through excessive pumping to meet irrigation demands of intensive cropping involving rice and sugarcane. Ingression of seawater to groundwater in coastal areas and mixing of poor quality aquifers with good quality ones in inlands are also the problems associated with misuse of irrigation water. Deterioration in native fertility of soil is another feature specific to irrigation ecosystem. Challenges in irrigated areas. In the post-green revolution era, resource conservation issues have begun to demand attention in view of the widespread land and water degradation problems linked to mechanized intensive tillage in rice-wheat cropping system. There is a need for shifting cropping systems and or production practices in accordance to the resource availability, particularly in respect of soil characterization and water availability. More than 80% of the water available in the country is already being used in agriculture, of which 2/3 is allocated to rice cultivation. Ironically, rice requires about 4,005,000 liters of water for production of 1 kilogram grain with conventional puddle planting method. This is unaffordable, given the situation of water deficiency in India. Climate change is another challenge likely to have impact on agricultural land use and production. R. Kanagraj, Faculty, Agriculture. 180. kanagraj.bioscience@gmail.co. Dr. 1153. This may be due to less availability of irrigation water, higher frequency and intensity of inter- and intra-seasonal droughts and floods, low soil organic matter, soil erosion and constraints of energy. Therefore, rice crop cultivation should be discouraged in IGPs with light texture soils, like loamy sand and sandy loam. These soils have low water retention capacity. Diversification by replacing the rice crop or by inclusion of suitable crops in the cropping systems is a matter of urgency. The diversified cropping systems including pigeon pea wheat, match wheat, and inclusion of pulses in the rice-based cropping systems is the need of the hour. Considering the increasing population and stress on natural resources, new technologies that will support higher productivity with lower intensity of resource use and on a sustainable basis are a must. It is therefore imperative to adopt a perspective plan that takes care of sustainability and anticipated impact of climate. This will need reorientation of R&D, technology package and extension emphasis. According to the National Action Plan on Climate Change, the key priorities for coping against climate in IGPs of India under National Mission on Sustainable Agriculture are 1. Diversification of cropping systems, 2. Promotion of carbon sequestration in agricultural practices and building resilience in soil, 3. Sustainable soil management practices, 4. Popularization of aerobic rice cultivation methods, water-saving technologies, and 6. Climate-responsive research programs, improved agrotechniques for irrigated systems, laser land leveling. Laser land leveling alters fields having a constant slope of 0 to 0.2% using laser-equipped drag buckets and gives a smooth land surface, plus or minus 2 centimeters. Large horsepower tractors and soil movers equipped with global positioning systems, GPS, and or laser-guided instrumentation help to move soil either by cutting or filling to create the desired slope. Laser leveling provides a very accurate, smooth and graded field, which helps in saving of irrigation water up to 20% and improves the use efficiency of applied N. Conservation tillage, zero minimal tillage. Conservation tillage is the collective umbrella term, commonly given to no tillage, direct drilling, minimum tillage and or ridge tillage, to denote that the specific practice has a conservation goal of some nature. Usually, the retention of 30% surface cover by residues characterize the lower limit of classification for conservation tillage, but other conservation objectives for the practice include conservation of time, fuel, earthworms, soil water, soil structure and nutrients. 181. 1153. C. Bed planting, narrow broad beds. In bed planting, crops are grown on the raised beds alternated by furrows. Beds are usually made of a width at 0.6-1.0 m and 2 to 3 rows of crops are sown on the beds. The furrow irrigated raised bed system, FIRBs, of wheat cultivation has been shown to result in a saving percentage of seed by 25-40, water by 25-40 and nutrients by 25 without affecting the grain yield. D. Direct seeded rice. Direct dry seeding of rice with subsequent aerobic soil conditions reduces overall water demand, saves labor, fuel and time, and gives similar yield to transplanted rice if weeds are effectively controlled. The technology does not affect rice quality and can be practiced in different ecologies such as upland, medium and low land, deep water and irrigated areas. Soil health is maintained or improved, and fertilizer and water use efficiencies increase. Therefore, it can be a feasible and preferable alternative to conventional puddle transplanted rice. Furrow irrigated raised bed system of planting. Furrow irrigated raised bed (FIRB) system of planting is an agronomic intervention where crops are sown on raised beds of different sizes. Bed size depends on crop type, soil, objectives of making bed and machineries available for making bed. The concept of raised bed planting is very advantageous in both waterlogged and limited water area. The system of planting crops on raised width at 0.6-1.0 m and 2 to 3 rows of crops are sown on the beds. The furrow irrigated raised bed system (FIRBs) of wheat cultivation has been shown to result in a saving percentage of seed by 25-40, water by 25-40 and nutrients by 25 without affecting the grain yield. Direct seeded rice. Direct dry seeding of rice with subsequent aerobic soil conditions reduces overall water demand, saves labor, fuel and time, and gives similar yield to transplanted rice if weeds are effectively controlled. The technology does not affect rice quality and can be practiced in different ecologies such as upland, medium and low land, deep water and irrigated areas. Soil health is maintained or improved, and fertilizer and water use efficiencies increase. Therefore, it can be a feasible and preferable alternative to conventional puddle transplanted rice. Furrow irrigated raised bed system of planting. Furrow irrigated raised bed (FIRB) system of planting is an agronomic intervention where crops are sown on raised beds of different sizes. Bed size depends on crop type, soil, objectives of making bed and machineries available for making bed. The concept of raised bed planting is very advantageous in both waterlogged and limited water area. The system of planting crops on raised bed alters crop geometry and land configuration, imposes effective control over irrigation and drainage. Waterlogged situation is a common feature of rainy season pulses in eastern and central Uttar Pradesh. However, Rabi pulses are normally grown under limited water condition or under rain-fed environment, such as in Bundelkhand region of Uttar Pradesh. Further, 40 to 50% reduction in incidence of complex Phytophthora wilt is observed in Pigeon under heavy rains. Furrows can be used to drain out the excess amount of water from waterlogged fields. Further, 40 to 50% saving in irrigation water was recorded when irrigation was applied through furrows. The problem of over-irrigation or ponding in field can also be avoided. In addition, 40 to 45% saving of irrigation water and 25% saving of fertilizers and seeds were also recorded under FIRB planting. Production systems. Production systems are analogues of agroecological subregions and geographical regions but go beyond both of them and integrate all the system components for determining the productivity and profitability. The important production system of India are rice-based production system, wheat-based production system, nutritious cereal-based production system, all-seed-based production system and cotton-based production system. In case of all-seed-based production system in agroecological region of hot arid, groundnut is the major crop. Sheep and cattle are important animals. Productivity and profitability of groundnut. 18217-25. Based production system can be increased by focusing both on agricultural and animal husbandry by taking the advantage of synergism of both the components.